Hello, everyone, and welcome to Radical Thinker, the place where we always challenge Western media narratives and perspectives. Today, April 8, 2026, the 40th day of the American and Israeli war imposed on Iran, we have seen in the past hour huge developments in this conflict. It seems that we are in the beginning phase, in the first hours of a supposed ceasefire between the Americans and the Iranians. Late in the night, 1 hour before the deadline, Donald Trump's deadline was closing. Donald Trump posted on Truth Social, and he wrote the following. I'm going to quote him. Based on conversation with Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif and Field Marshal Asim Munir of Pakistan, and wherein they requested that I hold off the destructive force being sent tonight to Iran and subject to the Islamic Republic of Iran agreeing to a complete, immediate and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz, I agree to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks. This will be a double-sided ceasefire. The reason for doing so is that we have already met and exceeded all military objectives and are very far along with a definitive agreement concerning long-term peace with Iran and peace in the Middle East. We received a 10-point proposal from Iran and believe it to be a workable basis on which to negotiate. Almost all of the various points of past contention have been agreed to between the United States and Iran, but a 2-week period will allow the agreement to be finalized and consummated. On behalf of the United States of America as president and also representing the countries of the Middle East, it is an honor to have this long-term problem close to resolution. Thank you for your attention on this matter, President Donald J. Trump. It's interesting that he regards himself not only as the president of the United States, but also as the representative of the countries of the Middle East, which shows that this guy is really losing the plot. So what truly happened? I think everyone is asking themselves who backed down. It's Iran losing this. It's the American side losing it. What really happened? As I was saying a couple of days ago, and even in yesterday's video, the Americans and especially Donald Trump are looking for an off-ramp. They are looking for something, for a story, for something to close the conflict from the American side, at least for a period. They are looking for a ceasefire or for some temporary changes in order for them to rethink the strategy and to have a new plan in order to continue their aggression against Iran. Although the mindset has probably changed a little bit in Washington and in the Pentagon, and they don't think now that it will be very easy for them to win against Iran, as it was shown and exposed in the past 40 days of open war between the United States, Israel, and the Islamic Republic of Iran. But what really happened, in my opinion, the Americans discussed with the Pakistanis to create this story of some negotiations taking place in the background of this developing conflict, negotiations aimed at reaching a temporary ceasefire, and I think the Pakistanis played along well with this story just to satisfy Donald Trump's ego. But if we are reading behind the lines of what Donald J. Trump wrote on Truth Social, we are seeing that he's openly speaking about a 10-point proposal plan coming from Iran. This proposal plan is nothing new. We discussed it here a couple of days ago. It's at least a couple of weeks old, this plan, and I will read you what are the 10 points that Iran is requesting in order to reach a ceasefire and to have a closure for this conflict. The first point in this plan, it's non-aggression. So for the United States to stop the war against Iran and to not try to start it again. The second point, continued Iranian control over the Strait of Hormuz. This means a lot of leverage for Iran in case the conflict would be to be restarted again in the near future. This means international recognition, or at least American recognition, of Iran's control over the Strait of Hormuz. The third point is acceptance of Iran's international right of enrichment. This means that Iran will not give up on its nuclear program and will continue to enrich uranium, but to what value we don't know yet. And this could be determined after a long series of negotiations. The fourth point in this plan talks about the revocation of all primary sanctions. Also, the fifth point talks about the revocation of all secondary sanctions. This would mean that both the Americans and the European Union would end the sanctions against Iran, primary and secondary. The sixth point talks about the revocation of all United Nations Security Council resolutions against Iran. The seventh point talks about the revocation of all IAEA's Board of Governors resolutions against Iran. The eighth point, it's about payment of war reparations to Iran. The ninth point, withdrawal of American troops from the region. And the last point, the 10th point in this plan, is ceasefire on all fronts, including against Hezbollah, the Islamic resistance from Lebanon. So Donald Trump talks about this 10-point plan. This will be the foundation of supposed negotiations, which are to begin this Friday in Islamabad in Pakistan. For now, indirect negotiations through Pakistani mediators between the Americans and the Iranians. But if we are looking carefully at this 10-point plan, we are seeing that most probably the Americans are not going to agree to most of these points. I don't see the Americans paying war reparations to Iran. This would be tantamount to an American capitulation, to the American side admitting that they lost the war, and only if, for example, theoretically speaking, Iran would manage to conquer American land, they would be able to force the American side to do war payments. Unless this happens, and for sure this will not happen because Iran doesn't have this military capability, the Americans are not going to pay war reparations to Iran. And as long as Donald Trump is president, with his big ego and with his narcissistic behavior, he will never agree to this. But this is a point of discussion that can be negotiated, and Iran can receive a lot of money which would be used for rebuilding the damaged assets, to rebuild the civilian infrastructure. And this money could come from the control over the Strait of Hormuz. Controlling the Strait of Hormuz, as I said, gives a lot of leverage to the Iranians to make a lot of money. There is a lot of talk on the internet about a fee of $2 million for each oil tanker that wants to cross the strait. This means that in a couple of months, Iran would raise a lot of money aimed at reconstruction. But this needs to be seen how things are going to evolve. Acceptance of enrichment. We are going back slowly but surely to the JCPOA agreement signed by Obama, which accepted from the American side the right of Iran to enrich uranium for civilian purposes. Donald Trump, since he took power in the first mandate and now in the second mandate, he was always very tough on this point. He said Iran should give up on all its enrichment and close its nuclear program, even if we are talking about a civilian nuclear program. But now this is a point of negotiations. Let's see what concession the Iranian side can make and what concessions the American side will make. But most probably Iran will not give up on its right of enrichment, which, by the way, it's a legal right. Any country on this planet has the right to civilian nuclear program. They have the right to enrich uranium, to have nuclear power plants, and to develop technology based on nuclear energy. It's not a monopoly only for the Western countries to have access to this type of technology, and Iran made a lot of sacrifices in the past 2 decades in order to reach a high level in the science of nuclear energy. Therefore, I don't think that they are going to give up on this. And also, this was and it still is a long point of content of discontent, let's call it like this, between the Americans and the Iranians. But I don't think that the Iranian side would give up on the right to enrichment. What I'm afraid of is that they would make a huge mistake, and in order to create the environment for concession, to give up on something in order for the Americans to accept the right of enrichment, they might make the huge mistake of giving up on those 450, 460 kilograms of 60% enrichment, which would be really a bad decision. I think keeping the uranium gives Iran a lot of leverage and allows the Iranian side to even use it for military nuclear purposes if a new aggression would occur in the near future. So I hope that the Iranians are not going to be stupid and give up on their uranium, the enriched uranium that they currently possess. If they do this, they could as well prepare for a Libya or Syria type of scenario. The same happened in Libya. They had a nuclear program. They gave up on it. Syria also had a chemical stockpile of chemical weapons aimed at deterring direct Israeli aggressions. They followed the advice from the Russians. They gave up on those chemical weapons. And in the end, we see what happened and in what current situation Syria is now without a real deterrent to stop Israeli aggressions. Syria currently doesn't even have the ability to control its own airspace, let alone to confront Israel, unfortunately. Another point talks about the withdrawal of American troops from the region. Even without this point, the Iranians did a lot in the past 40 days to force the Americans to get out from the Middle East. They destroyed almost completely more than 14 US bases in the Middle East, and reconstructing these bases would take a lot of time for the Americans and a lot of money. I'm not saying that they wouldn't want to do it, and I'm not sure that the Gulf countries have been pressured enough by Iran in these 40 days to decouple from the American connection. I'm not sure that the Gulf countries are ready to tell the Americans to leave their countries and to close those bases. Therefore, I'm a little bit skeptical about the Americans withdrawing at this point. But by doing this level of damage, Iran has started a process which might last for a couple of months or probably even 1 or 2 years. Although, in my opinion, the war should have lasted for at least 1 month, 1 more month, in order to put even more pressure on the American side for withdrawing their military forces from the region. And the last point from this plan talks about a ceasefire on all fronts, including against Hezbollah, against the Shia Islamic resistance from Lebanon. We saw there was a ceasefire more than 1 year ago between Lebanon and Israel, and the Israelis broke the ceasefire every day. And during this period that took place, 1 year and a half, the Israelis killed more than 500 Lebanese people, some of them members of Hezbollah, but also many of them simply Lebanese civilians. So I'm skeptical about this point that the Israelis are going to accept and go along with this, go along with respecting a real ceasefire and stopping the current invasion inside Lebanon, an invasion which is not going so well. They are stuck in the south of Lebanon without making too much progress. Hezbollah has changed its tactics and has worked very efficiently to contain the ground invasion, and they managed to have a level of success in doing this. Therefore, only probably direct military pressure coming from Hezbollah will deter Israel and will make them in the near future stop this aggression and withdraw from south of Lebanon. I'm not sure that the Americans can or are willing to put the necessary pressure on Israelis to back down from invading south of Lebanon, but time will tell. We had also a declaration from the Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson. The policy of aggressive aggression has been defeated. This is in connection to the crazy statements coming from Donald Trump from the past days when he was bragging about destroying the Iranian civilization, bombing the shit out of Iran, and so on and so forth. The Orange Clown, at least for now, he has backed down on his threats, and he didn't escalate to the point of no return. He didn't do this because also Washington knows that if the Americans would have bombed the key energetical facilities inside Iran, then probably by this hour today there was no electricity left in the Gulf area, and all of those countries would have become unlivable in terms of having their own capacity of producing electricity, of producing water which can be used for a normal purpose, and so on and so forth. We were very close to a disastrous situation, and I'm sure that there was also a lot of pressure from the Gulf countries on the Americans to at least postpone for a while this escalation. What I really think about the current scenario, I don't think we have a clear 100% winner as of now, but it's clear the fact that the Americans failed on most of their war goals. They didn't do the regime change. They didn't destroy Iran's ballistic missile capacity. They didn't manage to steer up a civil war inside Iran. They lost the international discourse, the narrative. Most of the planet now is siding with Iran and sees the Americans as what they truly are, as aggressors. So for now, at least theoretically speaking, things are going in Iran's favor. And if Iran manages to keep control over the Persian Gulf, over the Strait of Hormuz, and manages to make a lot of money by taxing the oil tankers which are going to pass through the strait, then they will have a strong leverage, and I'm sure that this will not go too well for the Gulf countries, especially for the Emiratis, for the Bahrainis, Kuwaitis, and for the Saudis. The Gulf Arabs are not too happy with the current developments, and neither the Israelis are, which were really excited to see the Americans go full guerrilla mode on Iran and destroying all the civilian infrastructure inside Iran. Even if the Americans would have tried to do this, the chances of them succeeding would have been slim, because Iran is a huge country, and the civilian infrastructure inside Iran is huge. And also Iran had the means to respond, not only by attacking relevant and similar targets inside the GCC countries, but also inside Israel. What I still don't understand is why Iran didn't put more pressure on Israel in this past weeks, and they didn't cripple the civilian infrastructure of Israel. I mean, they could have easily taken down at least one, two, or three power plants inside Israel and one or two desalination plants. And this would have created a lot of chaos inside Israel and would have put even more pressure on them to stop the hostilities. They didn't do this. The Iranians, they are still playing soft with the Israelis, and in my opinion, this is not good. What will happen next? In my opinion, the Americans are going to try to win as much as possible in the indirect negotiations. The Iranian will, of course, try to do the same. Both sides are going to proclaim victory for now. The Israelis are not going to respect the ceasefire, at least when it comes to Lebanon. I'm sure that they are going to, and they are already attacking inside Lebanon. I saw an Iranian declaration earlier that if in the next hours Israel doesn't cease the hostilities against Lebanon, then Iran will continue to bomb Tel Aviv and other cities inside Israel. So let's see how things are going to develop, because in the end, Iran can play this ceasefire game with the Americans, but it's not forced to play the same game when it comes to Israel, as long as Israel is not respecting Donald Trump's statements and it's not ceasing its hostilities against Lebanon. I'm very skeptical about these negotiations, and as I said, I'm afraid that Iran might do a very stupid thing and agree to give up on that uranium stockpile, which would be a catastrophic mistake if they choose to do this. In my opinion, the reasoning behind this attempt at a ceasefire and why Iran accepted this for now, it's more a logistical reason. Probably they need 1 or 2 weeks of break from a direct confrontation with the United States. They need to replenish their missile stocks. They have probably some military plans, reorganization, restructuring, planning. They need to do certain modifications inside their defensive lines in Iran. Also, the American side, they need this break. The Israelis need it too. So for now, we are not seeing clear winners. But if we are to quantify who lost more and who won more until now, I think Iran has gained more from this conflict than the Americans. The Americans, for now, they didn't manage to achieve any of their objectives. And if if the region started this war with an Strait of Hormuz being open to anyone, the end of this war, if it will really end it, if we will really have a peace treaty between the Americans and the Iranians in the near future, I'm most confident that the new situation on the ground will be a Strait of Hormuz controlled by Iran to a huge extent, and also by Oman, which is a partner for the Iranians. And this admission, the international admission that the Strait of Hormuz, it's part of Iran's area of interest and of control, would give a lot of leverage for the Iranians for the future, and also would provide them with a lot of money for rebuilding the country and fixing their economy. Now, do I believe that the Americans are going to keep their word and they are going to keep the deal? Most probably not, but I think this is a race for buying time from both sides, at least from the American and the Iranian sides, and some concessions are going to be made. And if Iran manages to get out of this war by controlling and making a lot of money from controlling the Strait of Hormuz, it's huge for them. Anyway, as everyone can see, they have won the public war, the public opinion war. as I was saying, most of the planet is supporting Iran because Iran has been the victim of the American aggression. The planet sees the Americans and also the Israelis as irrational actors, and this is just the beginning of the downfall of the American empire. There is no return from this, in my opinion. They can try anything they want to try, even more aggression, but they are not going to return to the position that they had 10 or 20 years ago. This is not going to happen, neither in terms of military prowess or in terms of prestige or diplomatic influence. Even Europe now, it's seeing the Americans as irrational actors, and they will try to avoid them as much as possible. Donald Trump managed to destroy the image of the United States in front of the planet more than George Bush and Obama combined could do it to their foreign policies. And this is a good development for humanity to see the Americans as what they truly are: unstable and violent characters with a neo-colonial mindset aimed at destroying any country that wants to be independent and who wants to have prosperity and to have good relations with other countries. The Americans don't want to have competitors, but at the current time they don't have the power that they used to have in the past to impose their will. So more and more people, more and more political leaders, I mean, from all over the world, will start to say no to the Americans. And the Americans for sure are losing a lot of leverage. They are losing the prestige that they once had after the end of the Second World War. And they are slowly but surely becoming a pariah state. I'm skeptical about the results of this ceasefire. I don't think that Iran should have agreed to partially opening the Strait of Hormuz, but we are not yet aware of all the details. What does it mean if those ships that will close the strait will do that for free, or if they are going to pay the toll to Iran? We don't have all the full information for now, and things are yet to be determined. But as I said, this is Iran's plan that together with Oman, they will charge passage fees to the Strait of Hormuz. They just need to have an international agreement, at least with the American side, for the Americans to recognize Iran's supremacy over the Strait of Hormuz. It seems that the American negotiating team, will consist of Vice President J.D. Vance and Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, which will go to Islamabad, to Pakistan, this Friday. We have the same characters which took part in the previous negotiations. Iran should be very, very careful with them, and also with the administration of Donald Trump. I'm still very skeptical that we are going to see all the relevant results from this, but I understand also the Iranian logic that probably they need a break for logistical reasons. Iran has insisted for this ceasefire to take place as long as Lebanon is also included. But as I was saying, Israel doesn't seem to agree with this. And therefore, the next hours will be key to see how things are going to develop, and if this ceasefire is going to be held by both sides. If not, we are going to return pretty fast to hostilities, and expanding the war in terms of duration and in terms of geographical space. In my opinion, it's in the interest of the Iranians, but let's see how much they can do it and for how long they can manage to keep up the initiative and the escalation ladder. For now, they have chosen to make this break, and we are going to see if it will be a constructive path following on this type of indirect negotiations with the Americans. Still, I am very skeptical, and as I said, I'm very afraid that the Iranians would make the mistake of giving up on the enriched uranium, which would be a catastrophic mistake in my opinion. At all costs, they should keep the enriched uranium in case the Americans are going to try to restart the war, or if they are going to try a new level of escalation of hostilities against Iran. Iran should have the possibility to use this uranium and build nuclear bombs if a reasonable agreement with the American side is not reachable in the near future. Time will tell. This is my update for today, for Wednesday, 8th of April. Please subscribe, like, follow, write me in the comments your opinion about this supposed ceasefire, and let's see how things are going to develop in the upcoming hours. Until tomorrow, until the next video, I'm wishing you all the best, and hopefully we are going to see more peaceful times in the Middle East in the near future.